coolest customer on the planet with a heart rate that barely moved from 60.
Now, my memory's not what it used to be, but about 3 hours ago, weren't we outside and you said Firouzja and Arjun?
Yes.
Wow, and now they're going to play, so you're automatically right in one and not right on the other one. I've already been wrong on all mine. So, although I did say Magnus. Magnus did win his match. This match, I don't know who the favorite is. I guess I'll tell you after the match who the favorite is, because I think it's pretty dead even. These are two of the strongest players here, and the game has begun, and it's from your home country originally, the London.
It is
your favorite city.
It is indeed the London. It is exactly what Alireza did against the with the white pieces against Wei Yi. But this time, Arjun has come prepared, coming out with the queen with ideas of attacking on the pawn. So that's why the rook slid over to defend everything, and the bishop now develops. So kind of normal game. But for Alireza, it's going to be all about solidifying that pawn structure, getting a nice triangle formation, and then just developing the pieces.
Yeah, an amazing start. We have a London and bishop d7, slightly surprising Alireza. Almost any move here is good for white. Move the bishop out to e2 or d3, play c3, very solid. And the point of bishop d7, which we usually see in a French defense formation, is to trade off the white squared bishops. Since black's white squared bishop isn't very good, and white's white squared bishop is usually fantastic on d3. So very interesting play from Arjun very quickly. Obviously, with the speed of play, this is his prep. And it seems like Alireza doesn't really know this as well. He's taking his time. Again, as we saw with the last match Arjun played against Nihal, his heart rate is really good. And I remember we were watching a match about 20, 30 minutes ago, and the heart rates were like 150. So 63, that's just amazing.
And we have a response to this bishop sortie. We see that pawn takes pawn, and now that dark square bishop is going to be beaten back as the bishop retreats. And here, well, this is a really committal pawn structure that Alireza has chosen, because if it doesn't work out well for him, then there is a target sitting there with that backward c pawn. But first, the queen is attacked. She must move. Now, Ben, you going to go forward with your queen, or are you going to kind of skedaddle backwards?
Ooh, queen d3, that's an interesting move. It looks like knight e5 would be annoying. Sacrificing the c-pawn, then black's queen gets to move 5 or 6 times more. So if I'm black, I'm playing safe and solid by retreating my queen. These players don't play like I do. They play more aggressively. They calculate more. So I wouldn't be surprised by queen d3.
Well, I suspect that maybe going in with the queen inwards would be a little bit too much, so I'm also expecting going backwards with the queen. I'm not quite sure where. Maybe she goes back to where she came from, because otherwise, any other square, she's going to get hit. So as we see our players thinking, well, we have a decision there from Alireza. Indeed, the queen steps back. And now development is the name of the game. You've got to get your kings castled to safety, and then I suspect that Alireza will just come forward with the c-pawn. It's a little bit backward, could be a target. Get ready to open up the position.
That's right, and if black doesn't trade on c4, white can play c5, and, well, a different way of playing. Instead of c4, c5, white plays a5. And black is moving the queen quite a bit, but is white getting anything for it by pushing all those queenside pawns? Only time will tell. The queen went back to b5. And it can get hit again, as you pointed out. Whenever the queen goes forward, it's easily hit. Will Alireza play knight d4? He can't castle now. The queen on b5 prevents castling. Or is white going to try for an endgame by playing the move queen e2, taking with the king, and getting the other rook over to the queen side?
Absolutely. That's a big choice on the board. You know, either you go aggressive, you attack the queen, harass her, or you could just take it, as Ben indicated, into an endgame where you're just arguing the king is going to be super well placed, the rooks are going to be defended, and that was definitely a choice. But, okay, we have a decision. It wasn't the endgame. That would have been a safe way to play. But now we're expecting the queen now to come in, and, well, maybe we're going to still see an endgame as the queens could still come off.
Yeah, he did play queen e2 eventually. I thought he was going to play queen e2 before knight d4. Actually, knight d4 makes sense. The knight's really strong on d4. And I think white has better chances in the ending with the advanced pawns.
It does definitely look that way as well, because that rook there in the corner is getting ready to move to the c line and just start preparing for an opening. And black definitely has to respond to that. You know, where are you going to put the king? Where are you going to put the knights? As we see Arjun take a pause. Maybe he's going to go knight out first, threaten, pawns forward, and then we will see exactly how Alireza responds.
Yeah, I actually like white's position a lot now. I like rook on h1 going c1, white playing c4. White has more space. White has the knight on d4. A lot of novice players, club players, don't like to not castle, so they would be upset to have their king on e2. But the king is very safe on e2, and as more pieces get traded, white's going to be happy the king's not stuck on g1 doing nothing. So white's king is very safe. The only reason black has for castling isn't to make the king safe, but to get the rook on h8 out into the center. So I'm not sure if black is going to play the crazy king d7 to play rook c8, or if black's just going to castle and forget about activating the king in the endgame and just get the rook off of h8. But still, I like white's chances. It looks like all the space that he gained on the queen's side helped him out by getting space advantage. Black has more pawns in the center, but black has trouble playing e5. White controls e5 and d4 pretty well.
Exactly. What we're going to be seeing from both sides is they're going to prepare for that eventual opening. If you can see, white is the one that has one pawn move in order to break things open. And what you want to do when you have rooks is you want to just open up those lines, get those pieces ready to infiltrate. So this is exactly what Alireza is calculating. He's calculating whether he should play it slowly, maybe start preparing some advances on the right side of the board, or should he accelerate the play right now, get that rook in the corner that is not working, move it to the c line and get prepared for this big opening. And here is actually problematic, as you were indicating, Ben, because how are you going to put the pieces? As we can see, we actually have a very quick response from our players.
I'm trying to show ideas in the analysis board, but the players keep playing too quickly. Black was threatening e5, forking the bishop and the knight, and so white played bishop g3. I thought white might play knight f3, but that gives up the e4 square. Knight on d2 is doing a good job protecting e4. Now white has a beautiful bishop on the diagonal. Ooh, that's the drunken bishop. We're not going to do that. And white has the b line for the rook. The rook on a8 is very poorly placed, defending the weak pawn. Knight on d4 is very strong. White has an advantage. White can get rid of his isolated c pawn by playing c4 later. White can play rook c1. And black's pieces are pretty passive. And black doesn't have any targets because the c pawn can easily play c4 and black can't really attack it. And it's just that I like the knight on d4 and the bishop on g3 much more than black's minor pieces. So white has a slight advantage. Black isn't losing by any means, but Arjun's going to have to find some counterplay soon.
Exactly. And what Alireza did, right, I was advocating for utilizing the rook in the corner, moving it into and gradually opening things up. But Alireza's like, you know what, I'm going to put the hard word on right now. I'm just going to make sure that the rooks are going to be liberated. And now we're seeing Arjun is the one now saying, hey, hang on a second. I don't like the way this is going, so I'm going to advance my h-pawn and I'm going to force you to step back with the bishop. It's not all one-way traffic.
Yeah, black wanted to get some counterplay somewhere. He put it in h. And again, the question is black going to castle king's side? Seems unlikely now. Or is black going to just put the king on d7, get the rook on h8 out of the way, back into the center of the queen's side? And black is fighting for the e4 square. Both knights can go to e4, targeting that isolated c pawn that I thought wasn't very weak, since white can play rook c1 and c4. But position's about equal. I would rather have white because of the knight on d4, the bishop on g3. I'm not worried about my king on e2. I think that's very well placed. Pretty even game so far. White gets rid of his isolated c pawn by playing c4, the only target in the position that black had. And Firouzja's still fighting for an advantage in this evenly matched game.
Absolutely, and I love this move there from for Alireza as we see him get rid of his only weakness. Remember, pawns are like herd animals. They move together. They like the company of others. And this is a beautiful move because if you recapture that pawn, the knight that's not working is going to jump forward and start having some evil eyes against the rook. So this is why Arjun's like, okay, let's make those trades. And now I'm expecting knight would be my choice. But maybe he can actually recapture with the pawn and grab the g3 square.
Yeah, it's interesting. The pawn structure might get funky after knight takes e4, threatening knight c3 check. And also knight takes bishop on g3, messing up white's pawn structure. Although then, once again, he did take with the pawn, as you suggested, so the knight has the d3 square. Now white has a passed c pawn, but it's pretty well blockaded. So again, the position's about equal. It's double-edged. It's still not clear if black is going to castle. One thing I know for sure, Yovi, white's not going to castle.
White's not going to castle, not at all, with that king sitting pretty on the second row. And as the rook starts to infiltrate, now the big question is Arjun's plan to lock out this bishop from the game? And then maybe set up some ideas with f6, e5, shut the door on the bishop. You can't do that just now. You're going to have to prepare it.
Yeah, white is not going to put his rook on c1 anymore. Going to double rooks on the b line. Black is probably not going to play knight d3, but wait to play knight d3 later when it's stronger. And as you said, black's long-term plan is to put a black pawn on e5, shutting out that white bishop on h2. So it could be in the near future, if black ever threatens play f6, e5, white's going to play bishop d6, trade the bishops so it doesn't get locked out. Instead, Arjun kicks out Alireza's rook with bishop to d8, and the a5 pawn is weak. So what's Alireza going to do in this situation?
Well, that's a big question there and then. You know, if you just drop the rook back to any old square. Oh, look at this. How do you like them apples?
Yeah, the
not
bishop,
going to retreat.
The bishop on h2 controls the b8 square.
Absolutely. And the big plan here is that if the bishop takes the rook, white is going to recapture with a pawn, and that is a one strong pass pawn that black will have to contend with. And wow, how good is this though?
Yeah, I'm making the moves on the analysis board. The b pawn's really strong, going to the b8 square with the bishop on h2. This position is very complicated because black can blockade with knight b7, and now white has two connected passed pawns, which he can push right away with c5. This would be amazing if black accepts the exchange sacrifice and white gets all this counterplay. And this is going to win a piece, but it does get rid of all of white's pawns. Now black has a passed pawn. This is a possible variation where the engine says it's about equal. White has more pieces, black has more pawns, black has an extra rook, and the passed a pawn, very interesting. So that's a line that could happen. We'll just have to wait and see.
That's definitely something that can happen. It looks really scary though. So if it looks incredibly scary, so that is exactly why black decided absolutely not. I'm not going to go for that. And the rook came up and got developed in that direction. And what can I say? I think this is a very natural move. Why not improve the worst place piece?
Yeah, rook h5 is interesting, and we answered one of my questions I've been asking the whole game. Is black going to castle? And it turns out neither side castles, confusing my students. They're like, how come you tell me to castle, and when the super grandmasters play, they play king e2 and rook h5? Don't play like the super grandmaster, just watch and learn. And maybe one day you'll know when to castle, when not to castle. That's one of the things that differentiates the super grandmasters from the club players. They know when to break the rules, but you have to learn the rules first.
You absolutely need to learn the rules. For instance, it's completely safe to have your king in the middle of the board when it is an endgame. And take a look at the heart rates and the evaluation bar, kind of saying that everything is always pretty level, very balanced game so far. But I just want to draw attention to Arjun Erigaisi's heart rate. We saw it go down to 50s, and now it's in the 60s, 66.
Wow.
Pressure is on.
His heart rate's half of Alireza's heart rate. Alireza's getting low on time. Probably didn't expect rook h5. And White's A pawn on A5, which I thought was very safe, is going to be under pressure from the bishop on D8 and the rook on H5. And it's not clear how White can continue. Arjun didn't want to give White those passed pawns, just played it safe, wants to put pressure on the rook and the pawn. Alireza getting in very bad time trouble. Once again, for our viewers watching, there's no increment. So the time you see, that's how much time you have left. You don't get extra time. And if you get down to less than 30 seconds, it's almost impossible to finish the game.
And I gotta say, it's still tense for Alireza as he decides whether he's gonna move the rook. He decided to go for a trade, and his whole idea is that, hey, the A pawn is gonna fall off, but he does have pressure against the A pawn. And now it is decision time for Arjun. Can he grab that pawn? Does he lock out this bishop on H2 that White has? Big decisions. Do you play it positionally? Do you play it greedily? I'm in for the hungry.
We like playing greedy.
Exactly.
So we like to take that A5 pawn. E5 is sort of double-edged because you kill the bishop on H2, but you're also making your rook on H5 sort of blocked in as well. Although Black can play rook G5 later and target that G2 pawn. So very double-edged position. Advantage Arjun. Arjun has a lot more time on the clock. He can figure out the complications, and Alireza's got to keep moving because there's no increment, there's no time control to reach. He only has a little over a minute to finish the whole game. So Arjun must be pretty pleased with himself with the black pieces. He already has Alireza on the ropes. Alireza's got to speed up.
He's got to speed up, but we see Arjun Erigaisi. He is really settling in. He's locked in, and he can't think for too long because that advantage is going down. Decision time. He just has to take a decision, stick with it. I don't think both moves are good enough. You can lock out that bishop, advancing the pawn, chase away the knight. Bishop takes pawn, also pretty interesting, but he's working out what happens after the rook gives a check. Ooh.
Well, long think by Arjun, one of the longest thinks of the game. I think he's considering the moves we were suggesting, either bishop takes A5 or E5. After bishop takes A5, White can play rook A7 check. We have to figure out if White's going to get a perpetual check or Black can save himself. Instead, Black played knight D3, which the computer doesn't like, with the idea of taking the A5 pawn with the rook, eventually putting the knight on D3, as you suggested earlier. Not engine approved. It doesn't like moving the knight off of that A6 pawn. Now they're going to trade A pawns, and it looks like...
Oh, look at this.
Rook
Look at
D6
this.
check.
And suddenly, like, if you stab back with the king to the wrong square, it might be rook takes bishop, and make sure that's not a
knight
check.
C6
Knight
check.
C6 check
King
is going to
E7
happen.
double question mark.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Arjun has dropped a piece. He's dropped a rook. You can just grab the rook, and that's exactly what he's
Boy, the
done.
game just turned around completely in one move.
Alireza now winning, but he's only got 46 seconds left on the clock. And for him, that's easy.
Yeah, that's a lot of time for Alireza. And I was telling somebody today, I was telling them the longer grandmasters think in positions, sometimes they don't know what to do. That's why they're thinking so long. And a very long think, you play the wrong move. That's exactly what happened this game. Very long thing from Arjun, and he just played a bad move. He missed the tactics, and now he just has a losing position.
Yeah, it was getting complicated, and he was looking for clarification, and now we saw him blunder and exchange. And for Alireza, it's just now about mobilizing the rook. The c-pawn is the clincher. That is going to start moving forward. But Alireza, just 30 seconds
Just
on
30
the clock.
seconds left. Wow. Can he do it? Is the c-pawn strong enough to take advantage? Can Arjun take advantage of the time situation?
Well, the thing is, though, I think Arjun is banking on the fact that if you do advance the c-pawn, he's going to be ready and
Threatening
winning with the bishop.
checkmate.
Uh-oh, checkmate on f6. He has to put his king right on the same diagonal as the bishop. And now another check. Pawn takes pawn is going to happen. And White is just collecting all the material. And Alireza wins it. Whew.
Well, I wouldn't resign when my opponent has 23 seconds left, but Arjun was confident that Alireza could do it.
These guys are good, especially when there's no time on the clock. 23 seconds is like a
Plenty
lifetime.
of time for Alireza.
Absolutely. He is fast, one of the quickest players on the planet, and he's gotten off to a blistering start, winning with the white pieces against Arjun Erigaisi. Arjun, if he wants to take it to Armageddon, needs to strike back.
Yeah, that was a tough loss for Arjun. He can fight back with the white pieces. Just as soon as Alireza got into very bad time trouble, Arjun started blundering. And what's funny was I was looking at his heart rate and it wasn't really changing. When he was blundered material and he was obviously losing, he was still in the 60s. So he's a really calm, cool, and collected customer. Can Arjun force Armageddon, or is Alireza going to go through?
Well, there is some
Chessboard New.